Okay, so in this one, they want you to find the average and the median of the data. So for the average, I want to add up all the numbers and divide by how many numbers there are. So I'm just typing them in the calculator. So -4, 6, 8 plus -5.2 plus 10.4 plus 10 plus 12.6 plus -13. Be careful, this is the negative button and this is minus. If you try to use minus as negative, it'll give you an error. Okay, so I added those all up, and then how many numbers are there? So it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers. So if I divide by 8, that gives me an average of 3.1. Okay, then for the median, I need these numbers to be in order. So let's look and we'll search for the smallest number. And so be careful with negatives, right? The smallest one is -13. It's like the biggest negative number. And then -5.2. And then -4 looks like the next one. And you can do something across them off as you get them. Okay, so then what's the next biggest on the positive side? It looks like 6, then 8, then 10. So 6, 8, 10, and then 10.4, then 12.6. And make sure I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers. Okay, so the mean is the middle one. Well, sometimes you can say, well, there's 8 numbers. I know where the middle's going to fall. Sometimes you can say, okay, well, there's the 2 end ones. There's the next 2. Just come in from the sides when you don't have a ton of numbers at once. Here's the next pair. And so not surprising, if I have an even amount of numbers, then the median falls halfway between. There's 4 on this side and 4 on this side. So what do I do when it falls halfway between? Well, I find the average of these two numbers. So if I add up 6 and 8, I get 14 and divide by 2. Or sometimes when they're whole numbers, it's easy to eyeball that 7 is halfway between 6 and 8. But either way is up to you. And so it looks like the median of this set is 7. Okay, then they give us the same set basically, except they took out which data point. So we have -4, 6, 8, -5.2. They took out 10.4. They took out the -13. So just that last one there they scribbled out. Okay, so I want to do the same thing, find the average and the median. So I can go back and add up all the numbers. Another thing I can do, if I was just thinking about it, is if they took -13 out of my group, if this used to be what I got when I added them all up, now if I take out -13, so minus a -13 is the same as +13. So I can think about, well, if I add up the numbers without -13, it should be 13 bigger. And sometimes too, if you're like trying something experimentally to see if it works, it's not a bad idea to go back through and just see if that actually gives you what you thought it was going to. So another thing is you could just add up the 7 numbers. 10.4 plus 10 plus 12.6. So looks like our idea from earlier worked. If I know the total and I know what number they took out, I can put it back in there. So either way, so that's my total for 7 numbers, because I have 1 less number now. So it looks like my new average is 5.4. And that kind of makes sense. If I take out a negative number, I get a bigger average. Okay, so then to not have to redo all the work for the median, it's the same data set, except they took out this number. So now think about where the middle is going to be. If I have 7 numbers, I could put 3 on each side, and it looks like it makes this right in the middle. And sometimes too, right, the idea you can just divide by 2 and say, okay, 3.5. So the 3.5 number, so halfway between 3 and 4, so you can see that that's directly in the middle. There's 3 numbers on each side. So it looks like my mean for that one is now 8. And you'll notice a pattern to that too. If you have an odd number of numbers, so 7 numbers, you have an actual middle. 8 numbers, you have to go halfway in between. So anytime you have an even amount of numbers, you'll end up with that halfway in between scenario. And anytime you have an odd number of numbers, you'll end up with a median landing on an actual number.